Coach Lantzy runs the Brine King of Spring event down in North Carolina every year, and I think it was 2010, 2011. I think it was like your guys' second year when I
Yeah.
first went when I was back with ESPN, and fantastic event. And you guys just and what kind of I know you guys raise money now, and just for refresh my memory, what are you guys raising money for?
We're in our fourth year partnering with the folks at Diverse Cancer Foundation for raising funds for pediatric cancer centers and research for fight against pediatric cancer
Uh-huh.
and supporting patients in the hospital setting. So,
Okay, and all the teams raise money for this cause as well, correct?
correct. Yep, it's been a great ad. I mean, we we have upwards of 40 teams. Every team designates a local pediatric cancer center that they want to support. And the team that raises the most money takes the entire amount raised by the tournament back to their community. So last year, the Hill Academy guys raised the most money, and they took a check for $75,000 back to the Sick Kids Hospital in
Wow.
Toronto. So hopefully our goal is to raise 90,000. We're a couple weeks out. I think we're at like 25,000 right now. Last year there was a great kind of push at the end to raise a
Yeah.
load of money. So it's exciting. I mean, I tell the guys the best win you'll get that weekend is the win before we play. That would be winning the fundraising battle.
Yeah, it's nice to have that competition off the field before anybody else actually gets there, because obviously that's the greater cause. So it's a fantastic thing you guys do there. That's one of the things I love about the event. But I think we might have jumped the gun a little bit because anybody who's watching this may not know what the Brine King of Spring is. So why don't you kind of give us a little bit of a background on what the event is?
Well, I think, I mean, I'm not sure, but I think right now it's evolved into the largest regular season intersectional regular season high school lacrosse event in the country. The unique thing is they're all regular season games. Teams hail from 9 states in Canada. I believe we have 7 reigning state champions in the event again this year. A bunch of nationally ranked teams, and it's fairly unique to have the non-hotbed area powers versus some of the traditional powers. I think people love the intrigue of Calvert Hall versus Memphis University School, or in the past, the best team, the Highland Parks versus McDonough or whoever. So, those guys have been great supporting the event over the years. Calvert Hall, I think, is in their like 7th straight year at the event.
Yeah.
McDonough does it every other year. We've had Malvern Prep down over the years. So those guys have done a great job supporting the event on little practice and tough games.
Yeah, for those MIA schools, it's usually like I think Calvert Hall. It's usually one among their first couple games of the year when they head down there.
It is their first couple games. It's kind of lose-lose for those guys. So I always appreciate them coming down because they got everybody's gunning for them, and it's good lacrosse, and the opportunity to lose is there.
Yeah.
Way back when we first started, if you recall, Macaulay had beaten when they were ranked like 5th in the country. That was a huge upset.
Yeah.
Um, you know, yeah,
Yeah, that McCallie school, they went up. I think that was the year they went and played Landon too, and they gave Landon a pretty good game that year. They had a really good team that year. I think it was a couple years after Troy's son had graduated, but they had some pretty good talent on those teams back then. But yeah, I remember seeing Calvert Hall and Highland Park. I think it was the first game of that event that I had ever seen. I still have the photos from that game. I remember it being a fantastic game, and those guys from Texas were excited to play Calvert Hall, so it was something for them as well to be able to go to North Carolina and play an MIAA school with obviously legendary coach.
yeah. No, and Ryan Brown was in that game. Now he's like the best player in the world, and he was in that high school game. So yeah, a lot of great players have rolled in and out of here over the years, and Tyler Pace. Remember when he played up in that one school in Virginia was here, and some of these guys are like not household names, but the collegiate level, you're like wow. We saw that guy running around on a high school field for a couple of years, and he's pretty.
Yeah.
So, so the event has really kind of evolved, though, as you know, Mike. I mean, it was
Yeah.
just kind of born out of me not wanting to travel with my guys and calling. No, it's the truth. I mean, I knew I'd been a long time college coach and knew a lot of guys had traveled at spring break, and Andy Hilgarder, McDonough, and I were college teammates, and Derek Thompson was a Duke alum who I knew well at Highland Park, and we just said, hey, you guys want to take a spring trip to Durham? And they're like, sure. And it was like Charlotte Country Day, and Coach Tuma came up, and Norfolk Academy and Tom Duquette, and those guys, they'd always played. So we kind of met here, and it was fun, and it was easy. And some guys like, hey, that was good. It was inexpensive, and they wanted to come back, and some teams wanted to play them, and they were like, "Hey, we're going back to Durham. Why don't you call John?" And I'm not very good at saying no. And 6 teams to 40 teams pretty quickly. And we've gotten some great support in Durham. The Durham Sports Commission, which was founded 3 years ago, has got behind it. Gives us a bunch of money to help support the event on the logistics side. We don't charge a fee to be in it. There's no entry fee to participate. I love that about the event. Nobody's making money. It's not about that. It's just about really good competition. It does great things for communities, does great things for Durham. And, we try and put our best foot forward every year. So,
yeah,
it's been fun.
And speaking of this year, I haven't seen the lineup. I know a couple teams because I've talked to a couple coaches that are in it, but and I know you got 40, so we're not going to mention them all, but who are some of maybe the bigger names, the 5 or 6 teams that, people will be like, oh, those teams are coming.
Lambert will be back out of Atlanta. Calvert Hall's participating again. Memphis University Schools, defending state champs. Wando out of South Carolina has had a great run the last few years, defending state champs in South Carolina. All the North Carolina defending state champs are participating. Lake Norman High School, all the privates in our area participate as well. Middle Creek, who's been great. All those Virginia private schools, St. Anne's Belfield, Paul VI, Stab, Norfolk Academy, St. Christopher's is participating this year as part of the event for the first time ever. Great lineup. Kiski out of Pittsburgh, the Hill Academy younger team, great. So we've got a lot of teams that have been here a lot of years in a row, so it's fun. A lot of major matchups that are happening. Norfolk Academy and Hill played the first Thursday night game for like 6 straight years. And it's a great, it's kind of a bit of a rivalry and fun to watch.
And obviously a rivalry really born of this event. Because that's not teams that would normally meet.
Yeah, would never play each other otherwise. And, the Virginia independent schools have really kind of made this a destination, and they knock out some in-state games. It's a bit like North Carolina. They do a lot of travel to play regular season games spread out over the state of Virginia. So Paul VI in particular tries to knock out playing Cape Henry Collegiate or Norfolk Academy or those kind of guys. So seeing some big, important regular season games for their state played here on a neutral site, which is unique. So
yeah. And for anybody who watching or listening to this, if you need any other reason to kind of pay attention, you got Lambert, who's riding a 24-game winning streak, which is the longest winning streak in the Southeast region. Connor Schellenberger with St. Anne's Belfield's the #1 recruit in the nation, according to Inside Lacrosse. Calvert Hall is looking to do something that no team in the MIAA has done, I think, since like '87, which is win 3 straight MIAA titles. So they're coming off back-to-back. Yeah. So, I mean, there's plenty of other, and that's just what I know about. And obviously PVI coming off, their Coach Waters coming off his first VISAA title. I mean, there's storylines all over the field. Like, even if you don't, follow one particular team, there's a lot going on down there that people should be paying attention to. And I'd love to see how it's grown. And my goal is to get back next year, because I've had a couple. I think one of your assistants, Eric Thompson, he always tells me, he's like, "You got to get back. You got to get back." I was like, "I'm going to get back 1 year." Moving to Chicago made it a little bit more difficult because it used to be a drive from Maryland. It's a little bit harder to get there.
Better than Chicago, Mike. So we've had some interesting weather weekends over there. You never know what you're going to get in North Carolina this time of the year. So it could be 70, could be snowing in 32. So we're praying, keeping our fingers crossed for something at least in the middle.
Yeah, I remember that the first year didn't know how to pack, because it was supposed to be like high 60s, low 70s during the day. And I remember that was when I saw Calvert Hall and Highland Park. And then at the Durham Academy Stadium after dark, I was watching Charlotte Country Day and Memphis University School. And I remember me and Coach, who's the, not Coach Thompson, it was the St. Mark's coach. I'm drawing a blank at this time. Legendary coach. He's all-time winning as Coach Tech. Okay, but we sat in the press box. We were the only 2 people in the press box sitting there talking lacrosse and watching the teams play because it was so cold. We were like, and obviously he was coming from Texas, so he was really cold.
I'm from Buffalo, man. I know how to layer up, bud. You can, you can always take it off. You can't wear it. You can't wear it. So I'm good at that. I'm good at layering up.
Yeah, there you go. So, if you don't mind, like, maybe if you could send me the line, I'm sure you have some of the teams, and I'll put it links so everybody can kind of see the teams and maybe the matchups as well, because that'd be great.
Getting ready to update the website. King of Spring, lax.com website has all that, and they track. Damian Hall does that for us, who does the
Okay. Triangle Lax.
.com. He runs our website, and so we'll keep that updated as we go the best we can. So it's we're looking forward to a good weekend. I just have my eyes glued to the Weather Channel. I'm like, please. There's some weird weather kind of predicted. I'm like, oh, come on, please don't do that.
Yeah. That's it. This time of year, it's flip a coin at
When
this
you
point.
had a ice storm on Friday, teams couldn't get their flights in. We had to restart the whole schedule on Friday. Everybody got a game. It was crazy. So I love the collegiality of the guys. We're just true pros in the profession of high school coaching. I think that the one thing for me, somebody who's coached at all different levels, the highest level, I really love the true teacher coach model. And in most of these places, that's the guys who come back appreciate great competition for what it's worth in the development of their kids, and the idea of service and bigger things and messages to talk to your kids, and the context of team through that. I love that. I love the kids getting to meet one another. I love getting to meet new coaches, reconnecting with guys that become great friends over the years and great resources for each other when we have tough moments. I mean, this network has really helped all of us support one another over the years. So I love that part of it for me personally. That's why I keep doing it, because it's a labor of love. My wife's always like, what are we doing? It's right. Can't we go somewhere? What are we doing? It's like, do we have to be doing this? I'm like, no. Every year, I find myself right back doing it again. I'm like, oh, goodness gracious. I mean, and once the teams get here and the coaches get here, I'm like, this is why I do it.
Yeah, I'm sure it's probably one of those things, like you might have started so you didn't have to travel, but now you're probably disappoint a lot of teams if you decided, like, I can't do it this year. Like someone would probably end up being like, you know what, we'll help out this year. Like,
no, it's true.
It's become huge.
There's some guilt that way. I'm like, man, some guys, it's kind of built into what they do for building their team out for this spring. I'm like, man, kind of obligated right now to keep it going at some level. So I still got a lot of energy. I'm still a relatively young guy, so I still got enough energy to keep it going. So one of these days I won't have enough, but right now that's not it. So.
All right, sounds great. Before we let you go, I'll see if Michael has any questions or anything he's always curious about before we let you go.
Actually, I do. I was talking to some people about other sort of interstate tournaments today, and they had some problems with the athletic departments or the state sanctioned to go over state lines. Has there been any problems with that? How has that been worked out, or is it not even an issue?
No, it has initially when you hit a certain threshold. If you have non-border states, like states that border one another have different rules than states that don't. So once you get more than 4 states involved in an event, you need National Federation of High School sanctioning. But for like the MIA, for the North Carolina Independent Schools, for some of these, we're affiliate members of the National Federation, not full members. So it doesn't matter for us, but it does for every public school program. And the Atlanta schools, the one thing we've had to massage over the years, it's not a tournament setting, right? I mean, we preset the matchup. So there are a list of, we've had to work through that at the state level and just say, don't worry about it. You will not play a team that's on the list. There are schools in the event they're on the list for the Georgia State Association that they can't play, but they won't play them, So we've had to massage that way. When it first happened, we had to reconfigure a couple matchups because shockingly we were like, wow, that school's on the list, like the Virginia independent schools, because they have some boarding schools and some other things. The Georgia schools do not allow them to play. So we had Lambert scheduled to play Stab. I think one year we had to change that in the 12th hour or whatever. So we all know the rules now, and we all going in kind of talk to our athletic directors and get support ahead of time. So it was an issue at one point. It has not been an issue the last few years. But we are a National Federation of High School sanctioned event, and it does go to each state sanctioning body to be approved. So
yeah, because I'm not 2 hours ago talking about sort of something happening like this, and it's been in the problem with the sanctioning and all that. So I just want to see how you got around it or worked it out. So it gives me hope that it could be done in other places, because I love the idea of what you're doing, and I love the idea of raising money for a great cause and having great lacrosse at the same time. I mean, what could beat it? So it's a model for other people who want to try something like this in different areas of the country. It's really a a thing that you've started, and I think it could encourage a lot more people to do the same. So I really do appreciate it.
Thank you. I mean, there's some guys out there, like the Philly area, those traditional powers try and lock horns and do some things over the course of a day at a smaller scale. But, like I said, this thing is just unique in the fact that it just takes some teams from all over the place. I mean, it's, and it's easy. And I always respect those top tier programs that are willing to participate and ask and want to be part of it. Coach Bates this year didn't work out, but he's like, love to get down there, John. He and I are longtime friends during our college coaching days. And, to know that it's easy to go play Haverford and McDonough because, you win, you lose, it doesn't matter, right? I mean, somebody, if you're Malvern Prep and you come down and play Cardinal Gibbons High School and you lose, they'd rather go play those games. There's some element of some coaches that don't want to stretch and put their kids in a situation where that could happen. And these guys, I love Coach Kelly. Brian's like, hey, man, we'll take him on. And, hey, man, we could lose, whatever, to learn from that. And, they're not trying to win some mythical whatever. They're just trying to build teams for the long term, which is these are kind of like throwaway games, right? They're not impacting your big picture goals. Help you be a better team for what you want to do at the end, which is, win your league and win your state championship. And all the teams in this tournament have aspirations of that. And some years were a little better than others, but, and everybody works out. There's some years where the games get pretty lopsided and the sportsmanship piece is always in play. It's always in play. We've never had somebody come and say, can't believe those guys did that to us. BK will be like, hey, man, my backups don't play a ton. We got a pretty heavy schedule and an opportunity to get the kids in there and do the right thing. And that's what that's what I love about it. I think that in a world right now, and this is just me on my soapbox in a public forum, but the high school community is so undervalued. The coaches, it is. I've been involved in the U19 process, and they've pushed away the high school coaches out of that process. U.S. lacrosse, somehow we're not qualified to coach the U19 team anymore. It has to be college guys, and they got to pick the team. And the club thing, and college coaches don't call the high school guys anymore, and they rely on these things. And the thing about these guys, most of these programs, we just don't care. Like, none of these guys need a pat on the back. Nobody needs to be said, hey, you're awesome or whatever. We just do it because we know we're developing kids. We know that we're making an impact long-term for them. We know that something like this gives a lasting impression for something more than just yourself. And I love all these guys for that. I love that somebody, at least you guys are willing to put it out there and say that something good is going on, though we don't really care, but it's great to have it out there. No, it's true. I mean, everybody's like, oh, publicity this. I'm like, no one kid cares about that or coach. We're here just to play some good lacrosse games, and any coverage we get is great. But, I love that about the event. And I do stand on the soapbox for great high school coaches that are involved in kids' lives in a meaningful way. And I say all the time, the scholastic model, the 8 hours a day matter for the 2 hours a day. In the environment, it doesn't. They don't ask and they don't want to know. They kind of pretend, but they don't. If you're a high school kid and you're not holding up your end of the deal during school all day, you got to answer for yourself at the end of the day. And it impacts your ability to do what you want to do if you don't do what you have to do. Those messages are, lacking in society. And we're one of the last bastions of places where accountability matters. And, sometimes got to try and be the best individual you can be amongst this framework of, that you're given to be part of a team. And, for me, who's been on a team in some form or fashion since I've been 9, I've never had a year in my life that I've not been on a team as either a player or a coach or something. And it's just such an important, and I had great coaches through my life, and that's part of the reason why I'm a coach and I keep giving back. And I think publicity we can give for great high school coaches and what they're doing for kids is money in the bank for me. So I'm appreciative.
Yeah, well, I know for every year, like I think it was that first year, like I remember seeing Coach Goldberg on the sideline. I think it was McDonough. I forget who McDonough was playing that year. Maybe one of the Charlotte schools. But it was when Coach, he wasn't at St. Andrews anymore. Like that was right after he'd stepped away, and I was like, "Oh, what are you doing here?" And he knows Andy Hilgartner at McDonough.
No, he was our college coach when I was at Michigan State, and Andy at Michigan State together. Jeff was our assistant when I was a senior, and Andy was a sophomore. So, and Jeff and he stayed close, and that's And
Yeah.
St. Andrews, he was on the bus helping out, and I was like, the same thing. I'm like, Jeff, I go, what's up? And he's like, what are you doing here? And he's like, he's got me on the bus. We're just hanging out. So
yeah, I was like, oh, you could do one of those little, thread things that put everybody together into relationships and everything. Like you said, it's a tight knit community. Everybody supports each other.
Yeah, as you know, lacrosse that way is unique to a lot of sports. There's a lot of quality human beings out there doing good things for kids, and the nature of sport, it's changing, and our game is changing for sure. You can't deny that, the shift, and youth and participation. We've topped off. We got to make the important stuff important again to keep kids coming back to the game, wanting to play, and keep that growth curve going. So more kids get to have great experiences with great coaches, and have an impact in a positive way for their future. So I hope they give back. So it's a cycle of it, right? So.
Well, I can't speak highly enough of your guys' event because I said, I think it was the second year you guys were in existence. I attended, and the few years that I was able to get down there, it was a fantastic event. So if you're in that area, it is definitely worth going to check out some of the games, especially with the way it's grown. I mean, you have even more talented teams. And I know the kids love it because I remember watching Lambert play, and I was on the opposing team's sideline, and they were like, those Georgia kids are big. It was what it was like.
They can play, man. That is a good school lacrosse program. They come practice at our place every year, like on Thursday when they get in, and we do a little stuff with them. And my little private school guys with no football, we're like, oh my god, they're like, look at the size of these guys. A bunch of 6'2", 210-pound guys, and.
I think there was a couple linemen at that Lambert team because I think they were in the middle of their 48-game winning streak, and they were down. And I remember one kid laid some kid out in front of me, and I'm like, oh, he's got to be a football player.
Just reminded that it's great players everywhere, man. You can, the stick is a great equalizer. Everybody's got a brick wall, and you can be a player if you want to be a player, man. There's kids everywhere that got desire and skill and ability, and when those kids show up at the games, they don't care who they're playing against. They want to win, So I love that, man. Competition is the root of everything, right? And kids rise up and do better than you thought and overachieve and put them in a moment where they're stretched, and you'd be amazed what can happen, man. They can be, and we've seen some great moments like that. It's been some awesome lacrosse over the years. So many 1-goal games, overtime games. It's great. Yeah. Competition, and coaches and kids hugging afterwards, like, wow, man, I didn't know you guys could play like that, kind of stuff.
So we'll let you go, but what are the dates? When is it running before we let you go?
First game is Thursday, March 7th. We kick off with the Hill Academy, Norfolk Academy game over at Durham County Stadium. Then Duke Loyola play Thursday night. Whole slew of games on Friday. We're doing a team thing over at the Carolina Marist game. Coach Bresci is part of the reason why we're tied to the Verse Cancer folks. The guy who founded that was a former Carolina baseball player who had brain cancer as a player at Carolina, ended his career. Chase Jones, great guy. When I started the event, Joe was like, hey, John, you should hook up with this guy. He's pretty passionate. You're going to love him. So we went out and had lunch. Took all about 5 seconds to talk to this guy to know, man, you want to be with these people. Like, this guy was impressive. And, team, he's an athlete, high-level athlete, put his two passions together, his fight against cancer and team sports, and put a platform together for kids to make an impact in their community. And so we're going to do a Verse Cancer. They're doing their Verse Cancer game. Lacrosse is really involved in Verse Cancer. So their game is going to be the Verse Cancer game. All the teams are going to the game. It's going to be a really fun night. A bunch of games on Saturday again, and then 3 games on Sunday. And this year, fortunately for me, it's over on Sunday. Usually extend Tuesday, but I'm going to hit the road with my daughter for some college visits. She's a sophomore, so we got to go.
Oh, there you go.
Get in the car and go. She's a field hockey player, good field hockey player.
So you get a little bit of a spring break. It's business and mix it in.
Riding around with your daughter is a good thing as well. So
there you go.
School stuff. Yeah, it's all good. But
all right, Coach. Well, we'll let you go. I appreciate you making some time. And like I said, anybody who's in that area, definitely go check out those games because it is a high quality tournament, and you're going to see some fantastic lacrosse in early March.
They're all free. No admission charge. They're all free.
There you go.
Come on, watch some lacrosse.
Yep.
All right.
All right, Coach. Thank you very much. You have a good one.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
All right.
Yep.
Bye. All right, so this week we obviously just talked with Coach Lantzy at Durham Academy, and he did mention the term sportsmanship and how great it is, and that just kind of made me think of just the term overall and some, I don't know how I really want to put it, some back and forth that I've had, not just on social media and email this year, but in previous years, because obviously with some of the lists, like obviously the way I keep them as far as like records and most points and most goals and things like that, like some people have opinions, rightly so. Everybody's allowed to have an opinion on it. But I thought it'd be good to just kind of have a discussion on some of the stuff and like kind of couches like almost sportsmanship. Like at what point, I guess, is enough enough? So I'm gonna save the most goals in a game by a team. We'll save that for last because I know that's always a controversial subject. So if you're tuning in for that, you're gonna have to wait for that one. But the one of the lists that I always find interesting is like I'm always curious about the most points in a game. And if you ask like of all the lists that I keep, why is it that one? It's because the record is 21, and with as many goals that get scored now and the level of talent that we have now, that record was set in 1961, and like a couple players have come close at 19, but that hasn't happened that frequently. So like for me as someone, I'm like, people talk about the sportsmanship angle and maybe we should bench the kid and not let him do that and stuff like that. I'm looking at this, I'm like, that was 1961. Like that's not a new record. That's not something that just happened. Like that goes back years and years. So for me, I find that interesting, and I have opinions, but I'm gonna let you go first. So yeah.
Well, no, there's so many different levels of nuances to this thing. Okay,
yes, right.
I have to preface this first, so everyone knows where I come from. I think I told you this the other day. I'm a Miami Hurricanes football fan, and I love Jimmy Johnson, and he would step on their throats, and he said, "It's not my fault that I scored all those points. You're supposed to stop me, and you didn't." So I think you know where I'm going with this after that. Now, that being said, like I loved when he ran it up on Notre Dame in Jerry Faust's last game. I loved it.
Yeah.
Notre Dame fans crying and saying, "Oh my God, just look at Notre Dame's records when they used to blow up teams."
Yeah.
I loved it. I loved it. Now, if he did that against like a 1AA team at the time or something, then I don't. If it's an apples and apples game, you're playing your rival.
Yeah.
And you just keep blasting them, fine. If you're playing a team that's obviously not as talented and you're just padding stats, then I have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't like padded stats. I can see a kid score 20 goals in a game against a bad team and then score one against a good team, and I'd say that's the more important one.
Right. And I'm kind of that same mindset, and I look at it this way, and like in a lot of the games, like, and I don't know, because a lot of times, like, there's, I guess, because of my position and what I do, like, I know information that doesn't necessarily get shared out because honestly some of it's kind of unimportant, and because I run a stats-based site, I have a kid, like, he might score, like, I'll use this as an example because it happened this season, but Eric Molliver, I had him on the podcast last week, and he scored, after that, I think he scored, I want to say it was 17 points in a game. It might not have been quite that many, but enough, like double digits in the teens. But he sat out the fourth quarter. Now, I didn't necessarily publish that he sat out the fourth quarter, but to me, I'm like, all right, the coach, like, and I'm like, all right, that's what they did. Like, that's fine. And there's that other part of me, and I will also have to preface this. I played baseball growing up, and it was not very good, but I loved the sport. I got hit a lot because I realized, like, I crowded the plate, and I'm like, oh, I can get on base if I just kind of lean into it a little bit. But I remember we played our team, because we weren't great, we had to play an all-day tournament, and we lost our first game, which meant we had to play every game from 8 o'clock in the morning until we lost our second game of the day. And we kept winning. And it got to 8 o'clock at night, and we're still playing. And this is North Carolina in July because it was a summer team, and it's 98 degrees, and we're all sweating. And we were getting obliterated. Like, I mean, they have a 10-run rule, and guys on our team were literally going around. He was like, don't even swing. We just want to go home. Like, kids were quitting. And the coach called a timeout. And this is what always has stuck with me. And he was like, he's like, I'm not being a bunch of players who are just going to quit. He was like, if you just want to quit, he's like, you can leave right now. You're not going to be part of my team. He's like, you're going to fight until the very end. He was like, if we just want to quit, he's like, we're just going to quit. He's like, but I'm not a quitter. And he was like, it is our job. It basically said the same thing. It's like, it's our job to keep them from scoring. It's not their job to keep them to stop scoring. It was like, those players are playing their hardest. I expect you to play your hardest. And that's just kind of always stuck with me. So when I look at some of these lists, then I'm kind of like you, and I guess maybe this is the better segue into the most goals in a game. Like, and I've had these conversations with coaches. You know, at some point, it's like you want to tell your kids, like, you want to do your best. You always try your best. You always try your hardest. But not now. Like, now you slow down. You can't do that to them. You don't play at your top level. Like, take it easy. Let the foot off. Take the foot off the brake. And to me, that's kind of a mixed message. Like, if you want to bench them, like, all right, we're going to let our backup players, have a go. Like Coach Lantzy said with, Coach Kelly. Like, a lot of times, like some of those Calvert Hall players, again, it's early. They're still figuring their team out a lot of those games early on. But like, I kind of see that at play. Like, I see it from both perspectives. When you're beating a team that obviously isn't as talented as you, at what point do you say, all right, enough is enough? But so you put your backups in. What if your backups are just that much better? You tell them, like, all right, you never get to play. And now you're going to tell them, like, all right, you're in the game, but you can't play your hardest. At what point do you just, all right, it's their job. They got to stop us.
That was the thing I brought up about Jimmy Johnson in Miami against Jerry Faust. I think it was Mike Francesa who was going crazy on the thing, saying this is just classless. And Jimmy Johnson after the game said, "Those were my third string players at the end of the game." Yeah. He's like, "What am I going to run?" He's like, "I'm running the offense with my third stringers. They didn't stop my third stringers."
Yeah.
So that's the point. I'm with you on that. Like, for example, again, where I saw something like this in person, again, at a youth level. It was my son's team, went down to the Dix NDP tournament in Florida, the championship. Teams from all over the country. Our team from Illinois had lost. Everyone thought they were great, blah, blah, blah. We played Team 91 Orange Crush. Now, my son had been in West Islip playing in Long Island, playing with some of the kids. He warned all the kids on his team. He said, these kids pass behind their back with both hands. They're so good, you're not going to believe it. Everyone sort of ignored them. Well, they beat our team 20-0. It was 18-0 or 16-0 at half. They started the second half of the game. Now, I'm standing next to a dad, and we both said the same thing. Are they going to put another 18 on us?
Right.
And we said, what would I do? Oh, I would pass this many times before I take a shot. Yeah. I would work on my game. They passed the ball 75 straight times. Didn't drop the ball. 75 times. It went around backwards, forwards, brought their back. Like a mom from the other team came up and goes, I'm very sorry about this. And I said, this is incredible to watch.
Yeah.
This is great. This is great for our kids to see.
Yeah.
You don't think you're that good. They beat everyone in that tournament 20-0.
Yeah.
They could have scored 60. They could have, whatever. So some people might have said, oh, you ran up the score at 20-0. I look at it as saying they didn't run up the score to 70-0.
Yeah, they could have scored 60.
So, and they could have scored at any time they wanted the ball. That was Brendan O'Neill, who's considered going to be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah.
Everyone was great.
Yeah.
So at no point did I think any kid on our team or any parent on our team felt disrespected. Actually, I think we felt a little respected that they did the same thing they did to everybody else.
Right.
Because they could have killed us, but they could have killed everyone else.
Yeah.
So I didn't think, but there's also been times when I've been on the other end on this same team from Illinois who was playing a travel program that not at the level that our trip and put it on them.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there staring at the coach across the way, giving them this. They've had enough. We look like idiots.
Yeah, and I think that, to your point, like, a lot of it is how the other team and other coach, I guess, carries it. Like, it's when, like, if they're putting it on them and you can tell, they're like, all right, it's 20-0, we still got our first string in there, and, the kids are showboating, and they're doing behind the back goal. Like, at that point, it's like, all right, you're really rubbing it in, and to me that speaks more of sportsmanship. And I could still argue, but like, well, if you know they're going to do that, get a little angry and stop them. Like, it's a perfect time. Like, all right, they're going to do it. They're not going to stop. So, get a little angry and try and stop them, and maybe smack them in the face, and they don't do it anymore. Like, to me, it's almost like, and I've had coaches tell me, like, they've been on both ends of those kind of games, and they're like, when you're getting crushed and the team is down, he's like, it's a good opportunity for teach them, not just a lesson about the game, but a life lesson. But like, because I mean, you came from a world. I don't want to make assumptions because we've never talked about it, but I'm like, you came from a, probably, at least from, if you watch all the movies and movies like Wall Street and stuff like that, it's a cutthroat world. Like, I'm sure people they didn't take it easy on you. You're having a bad day, or if they were beaten, you're like, not taking it easy on you. Like, the world is not gonna let up a little bit. And coaches have told me that, and they're like, like, we try to tell the kids, like, this is just a game. You're getting crushed now, but how you react to what's happening now, you will carry with you when you become a man and you get out of college and stuff like that. Like, this is the kind of moment where it's like you kind of decide on who you're going to be when you grow up. Like, because right now it's just a game. We have another one. You'll move on. This, in grand scheme, this particular game means nothing other than just a score on the thing. But, how you react to that can speak volumes and kind of carry you throughout life. Like, it's just one of those, and that's what coaches have told me, like, personally, when I've played on teams, and just when I've talked to coaches about the various, things that they're teaching the kids. And I'm like, I see it from both sides. I don't really necessarily, I guess I do have an opinion. I really kind of stick with you on, the team plays up to their ability. And, I was actually trying to think about, like, what would I do to fix it? And to me, having covered football for so many years, like, at a certain point, there's the running clock. The opposing team, like, if they get up, and I forget what it is in Maryland, I think it's like 30 by the third quarter, midway through the third quarter, if the team's up by like 20 or 30, it's just running clock. Clock does not stop. And that kind of, I gotta say, fixes it. It just gets it over with quicker. But, teams they're still playing. The teams are still playing. They're still, and that seems to lessen a little bit. Does it keep the score down? No. Like, I've seen teams out of Damascus beat teams like 60-3. Like, they have the running clock by the half, and I've seen guys, like, they'll just run the ball and they'll still break off a 60-yard touchdown. And I know we've seen guys in the NFL that take a knee at the goal line, and I'm like, well, it's the third quarter. They're not going to just sit on it for another quarter and a half. Like, it's like they're going to score. It's like,
that's also a different animal in the football. You know, it's a 6 point, 6 points, 6 points, 6 points.
Right.
As opposed to each goal is a point. Now, another thing I look at is the demeanor of the other team.
Yeah.
Again, I've been on both sides of this. I've coached in situations like this where we are putting it on a team, and I slow it down. Now, which is going to be a problem when the shot clock comes into high school. That might make it different. Like, oh my God, you got to score or just throw the ball away. Which is worse? Well, I mean, I think it's sort of insulting to throw the ball away.
Yeah. I mean, when you tell me the other team's just like 75 straight passes, I'm like, I can see a situation where I'm like, all right, now you're I guess you're not showboating, but it's just like, all right, that's one, not fun to watch, and how frustrated are the kids on the other team? Like, just play, like.
Well, so Joe Spallina was the coach.
Yeah.
Who's the coach of or now he's the general manager of the Long Island or New York Lizards. I think he's the women's head coach of Hofstra. His son was on the team. I mean, this team. I think every kid on that team is going to go D1. Is playing D1. I think they're committed. The 75 passes weren't just around.
Yeah.
They were behind the head. They went back. It was like a Globetrotters thing.
Yeah.
But at no point, our team was still going after him.
Yeah.
Our coach, who will be seeing this, said we couldn't even, because he was like, knock them on their butt.
Yeah.
Knock them on their butt. He didn't say butt. You couldn't get to them fast enough. They didn't have the ball. Like, if you hit somebody, it was a blatant penalty because the ball moved every 2 seconds.
Yeah.
So that was something special.
Yeah.
But I've been on the other side where I've been up big on a team as a coach. And I've slowed it down. And
Yeah.
I've said to my team, slow it down.
Yeah.
I don't like do. Well, then the other team got a little lippy, and like a kid comes and cheap shots my kid. The foot went back on the gas.
Yeah.
I said, crush him now. I
Yeah.
said, now crush him and demoralize him. That's me again. That might be my little trading, and being on the floor of the board of trade. But if the other team is playing, so there's so many nuances to this.
Yeah.
I mean, rivalries. If you're beating a team that's been your rival and you're just killing them, can you stop? I hate bad sportsmanship. I hate it. But I understand it goes along with my parents. When you have parents screaming in the sidelines, I hate it.
Yeah.
But it's not cut and dry. It's not black and white. It's all gray, like everything is.
Yeah, and I don't think necessarily some of the scores that I'm looking at here on the screen, I don't look at these and automatically assume bad sportsmanship, because there's so many different things that play into that. I've watched coaches, like, again, I'm going back, like, I guess I've seen it more in football because I've never been on the sideline of too many blowouts in a lacrosse game. But I remember I was at a football game and the opposing team coach, like, the team was up by 30. The opposing team coach walked up to the other coach and he was like, he's like, don't bench your starters. He was like, he's like, our kids need to learn that, they got to fight through this. And we're not, he's like, he's like, people are not going to take it easy on them. And this was a Prince George County school, and it wasn't lower income. So I think the coach, it was just like he was teaching his kids a broader lesson, like, the world's not easy. We're going to do it. He's like, do not take it easy on us. He's like, just keep playing. He was like, and the coach was like, okay. Did make some of the parents in the stands happy, but the coach also told his kids, like, listen, like, we're not going to have them take it easy on us. Like, you're making your choice right now what you're going to do. He's like, you're going to keep fighting. He's like, we're going to lose this game. This game is over, but we have an opportunity to work on some things and try some things. He was like, because we don't want this to happen again. So let's stop it. And I was very impressed. Like, the team, like, they both played, but they played close. After that, the team, like, whether or not the coach told his kids, maybe some of the kids just decided, like, you know what, I'm not going to, maybe some of the kids, but from the game I saw, I'm like, the kids responded in a way that they were like, you know what, I'm tired of getting knocked on my butt. Like, I'm gonna start hitting back a little bit, and we're gonna keep in this. And it was like one of those things. I was like, it was one of the more magical moments that I've seen, because you don't normally see that. And obviously, those two coaches knew each other; they were friends, so it wasn't just random people. But like, I've seen that in sports, and I think, as we've talked, like, sports gives opportunities like that some other areas don't. Like, I mean, I have friends that are in band, but it's like you don't really see that in a concert. Like, you don't get those opportunities when you're in other extracurricular activities. Like, sports gives kids the opportunity, and coaches the opportunity, to kind of teach some of these lessons that some kids may not learn until they get to college or outside of college or stuff like that. I'm like, listen, like, sometimes you're going to get punched in the mouth, and how you respond really says a lot about you. And
that's it's character.
Yeah.
And what is there's a saying that says, your character, you don't find your character when you're winning, you find your character when you're failing.
Yeah.
How do you handle the failure? What do you learn from it? Like, I've said this to you before. I think I ask my kids every day when they come home, what did you fail at today?
Yeah.
And if they say nothing, I go, well, what did you try then? Did you try anything? And they're like, oh, no, I didn't. I said, okay. I said, but always try. Failure's not bad. Failure's good.
Yeah.
If I curled up and died every time I failed at something, well, I wouldn't be here. So, like almost everything, there's 2 ways, 3 ways, 10 ways to go about it.
Yeah.
I love that story that you just told. I think that's a heartwarming story. It's a great coach. That's a coach who's worth more than anything you could pay him.
Yeah.
To teach kids life lessons. That's why I love the high school sports.
Yeah.
Because college has become almost professional. So I love the high school coach, because I know I still remember lessons I got from my high school coaches.
Yeah.
I've seen high school coaches. That's the stuff that brings a tear to my eye. That's the stuff that makes me happy when you go, this guy gets it.
Yeah.
This guy gets it. Now, there are other coaches who are just a-holes and want to run up the score.
Yes.
And be like, we're going to show you how great our team is. And you're like, there's a whole other thought for him.
Yeah.
Or her. So I think everything has to be judged on its own. I know when you show those stats and people are like, "Oh, that's terrible," you don't know the situation. So to whole hog say, "Oh, that's terrible," is, short-sighted.
Yeah.
But then again, some people like to complain about anything. Like,
yeah, and I always, and I think I forget exactly how I put it, but someone because I published that the record for most goals scored in a game and stuff like that, and anybody who's listening, it's 41. Brother Rice did it a few years ago in 2017. But usually when I post it on social, I never say who they beat. I just say this team scored again from an earlier podcast. I always do the positive part. Brother Rice scored 41 goals. It's not the other team gave them up. It's a small distinction, but to me it means a lot. But it was when it was and they kind of pushed back on me a little bit because you're basically promoting unsportsmanship play. Because a team can get on this list by scoring 25 goals and blowing out another team. And I'm like, well, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not promoting. I was that score is I look at it from the angle, I'm like me. At some point, someone's going to score a certain amount of goals, and I'm like, oh, I wonder what the record is. And I'm keeping that record. I'm trying to gather this stuff and keep it so, people know. And, I'm not, I'm not making a judgment on whether or not, any of these scores, was it right, was it wrong? Because, honestly, I don't believe there's really an answer to that. I don't even think it's the right question to ask, to be honest with you. But it's one of those things, from my perspective, someone's going to be curious on what this record is or how many, what the most goals scored in a game is. And for me, I'm as someone who is trying to digitize the sport's history, I'm well, I have to do it whether or not. And to be honest, Brother Rice didn't give two whatevers that they were going to be number one on this list. I've never been in I've talked to the coach at Brother Rice a couple times, but it's not a school that I really have a lot of contact with. So I'm sure they probably weren't even aware. They might not even know that they have the record. So I'm sure they didn't care. But I found it, I have it. It's one of those things it's there, but it's just one of those I guess I don't buy into the opinion that because it's on my site or I'm publishing it that it's a motivation for teams, because I truly do not think I guess I'm not egotistical enough to think anybody's on the sideline and be like, oh, the record for most goals scored in a game is this, according to Lack's record, so we want to break that goal or that record. Maybe it's been uttered, but in my opinion, I really don't think that's really anybody's mind in the heat of the moment.
Right. Well, if you're doing it against a team that's way inferior, it's like being a bully.
Yeah.
If it was Brother Rice putting it on Detroit Central Catholic or Forest Hill Central or something, they're big players, the big players, and they're,
right.
I can see it saying we want to do that. I want to step on their throat.
Yeah.
But if it was a team that just started and had 9 players, that's a little weird. And knowing Brother Rice and following Brother Rice, they're a great team.
Yeah.
They are a disciplined team, and it's not I would have to see what the circumstances were for that, because it's out of character for them. They're a great team.
Yeah. And it could have been one of those, it could have been a situation where they were up 20 after the first quarter and the third string played the rest of the game. And it's
right.
All right, what are you going to do? I don't know the situation surrounding that game. So, again, nuance. You can't look at the score and tell you, that was bad sportsmanship, because I have no idea. As far as I know, they had the water boy playing. They might have had the stat kid playing at some point in the game. They're
what year was that game?
2017.
So that was 2 years ago.
Yeah, not that long ago.
I was so those kids, there's kids still on that team.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking it might have been a couple years before that and said, oh, how many did Sergei Perkovic have? He could have come and fired it from the midline and boom, popped it in. So, knowing that team and knowing how disciplined their team is and how disciplined their coaches are, and knowing players on that team still to this day, that's out of character. So there's more to that story.
Yeah.
I mean, it could have been their third string.
Yeah.
And at that case, you have to beat them in the first half.
Yeah.
And then in the second half, you play your thing, and it just happens.
And
it's
I guess,
weird.
Yeah. And I also look at it as I guess I'm a little bit of a believer in karma. You mentioned the Miami Notre Dame thing. I'm all right, Jimmy Johnson, maybe he stepped on Miami or stepped on Notre Dame's throat. And I'm Miami fans, as much as you enjoy it, you better be okay with it whenever Notre Dame does the exact same thing to you a little bit, years later. It's like you can't be okay with it when Miami does it and then rail against it when Notre Dame does it. Like, you got, like, all right, we did it to them. I guess we had it coming. Like, there's going to be a year where, like, they're just that much better and kind of thing. It's like, so it's like, it'll come back around, and
it always does. Although Lou Holtz quit playing Miami,
I guess that's one way.
Again, this goes a lot farther back. I've literally talked to players from Notre Dame about the Miami game where Notre Dame won I've said you cheated. I was at a game at Soldier Field when Miami got blown out by Notre Dame a few years ago.
Yeah.
And I was wearing all my Miami gear. I got so much, and I said, I'll take it. I'm not gonna. I said I would have run up the score in that game, in that matchup. I would always run up the score if you could.
Yeah.
It's not like these are two bad teams. It's Notre Dame and Miami.
Right.
If one of the teams can run it up, run it up.
Yeah.
Texas, Oklahoma. If it was Johns Hopkins, North Carolina, or Syracuse to Johns Hopkins, if you can run it up on your rival and a blue blood,
yeah,
that. Your job is to stop me. You can't stop me. I'm not stopping for you.
Yeah.
There, I have no problem. But like you said, the karma. I'll take the flip side.
Yeah.
I've never once said in a game such as that, like a big time game, it's like, oh, that's unsportsmanlike. I'd say, no, you need to stop it. Like a pro football game. I've never thought in a pro football game or a pro game of any level and said, oh, they're running up the score.
Yeah.
I know people have said it about Bill Belichick. With the Patriots, instead of kicking a field goal, they'd go for it on 4th and 2 and get a first down to score. I said, you're pros. You get paid millions. Stop them.
Yeah,
stop them.
And that's a completely different animal. But, I think some of the underlying, I guess, philosophy for me still holds because, again, those guys, they get to go home and sleep on their bed of money. Like, they're going to be okay. But I have to believe, like, some of those guys were they were all high school kids at one point, and they may have been on the other end of one of those games, and they know how it feels. And if they were lucky like me, that had some coaches that just took a moment and took you aside and be like, this moment will decide the man you are going to be. Like, you can go and cower. Like, he literally told us, he was like, because we were all legal driving age. He was like, if you don't want to play this game, just get in your car and leave. And don't come back. He was like, because I'm not. He's like, he was like, I'm not, not raising, but he's like, I'm not raising quitters. He was like, he's like, if you don't want to play, just leave. He's like, you're not getting paid to be here. You're free to go. Like, you paid to be in this league. He's like, you can go. He's like, but if you're gonna sit on this bench, you were going to try, or you're just gonna sit here and take it. He was like, and he's like, those are your choices. He's like, and it was one of those moments like. Nobody left, and it did spark us a little bit. We didn't win. It wasn't it's not going to be one of those, great sports moments where we came back from a 10-run game. We got crushed. We lost by 15. But, it's like everybody, you could tell everybody was kind of surprised that that moment happened, and everybody just kind of was like, all right, our pitcher went out and he threw a little bit harder, and guys were digging out, and we were trying to catch, we weren't, everybody was trying a little bit harder. You saw a little bit more effort for the rest of the game, even though we got crushed. Like, honestly, that team could have beat us by 30. And it was just one of those moments where, like, it's stuck with me. I mean, I was 17 at the time, and it stuck with me all these years. I'm not going to say how many years, but it stuck with me all those years later. So I always think about that whenever someone brings it up on Twitter about these various lists, like, oh, the kid scored 21 in the game, they should have benched him. And I'm like, well, what lesson is that teaching? I'm like, oh, if you're too good, you get sat. I don't think that's a good lesson to be taught. I'm like, don't be too good. Like, there's a double-edged sword. I'm like, you got to realize we're talking about high school kids on both sides, the winning and the losing end. But I think there's teachable moments, as I hear a lot of coaches say, on both sides of that result. And I think that's really what for me, that's really what it comes down to. I'm like, and it really comes down to who the people are, who the coaches are. And obviously we're not going to lie. Like, I'm sure there's some of these games on this list where they might not have had the best intent. They might have been up and they're like, well, I hate this team. I hate this coach. Like, it's like there's rivalries among coaches, even if it's not rivalries among teams. The coach might have been like, I can't stand this guy. He cut me off in traffic 2 weeks ago, and I don't care. Like, it has nothing to do with anything else. Maybe you just had a bad day at work. Like, it's just so many, as you said, nuance. There's so many different factors that go into some of this stuff. But I'm sure we would love to, I'm sure I will hear, but I would love to hear people's comments on what they think as far as like this sportsmanship and what they take and like what, and on what we said. So, leave comments for us on Twitter. If, since we're going to be publishing this on YouTube, you can go to the video on YouTube and leave comments down there, like wherever we want to hear it. I'd be very interested to hear what other people have to say. As always, we keep it positive and we try to not respond to the overtly negative. We're all about having a discussion, but obviously a adult conversation about these things. So we can all agree to disagree at the end of the day and go on about our lives and be okay. So I think that's a good segue. So Michael, where can they find you online if they have an opinion?
Okay, you can find me on Twitter at MFWChi, MFWCHI, short for Chicago, and you could email me at mward@laxrecords.com.
And you can find me, obviously, at Lax Records on Twitter, Instagram. It's facebook.com/Lax Records, and, of course, laxrecords.com. Everybody, have a week.
All right, thank you.